Private, Jeonsa. Private, known as Jeonsa in Korean, is the lowest enlisted rank in the Korean People's Army and the entry point for every single conscript who enters North Korea's massive military machine. When North Korean men turn 17, they're drafted into what becomes one of the longest mandatory service periods in the world, a grueling 10-year commitment that consumes their entire young adulthood. From day one, these fresh recruits learn that military training in North Korea isn't just about combat skills or physical conditioning. It's about absolute devotion to the Kim family, with political indoctrination sessions consuming as much time as weapons training. The pay for a private is essentially non-existent, with reports suggesting they receive somewhere between $1 to $2 per month, though even this pittance is rarely paid in actual currency. Living conditions are notoriously harsh, with malnutrition so common among lower ranks that defectors frequently report stunted growth and chronic health problems stemming from their service years. Every private is expected to demonstrate unwavering loyalty, and the system encourages soldiers to report on each other, creating an atmosphere of constant surveillance where a single wrong word about the leadership can lead to punishment camps for the soldier and their entire family. The sheer scale is staggering, with hundreds of thousands of these young men in identical olive uniforms standing in massive formations, stripped of individuality, reduced to tools of the state. Most will never be promoted beyond this rank during their decade of service, spending their prime years in a system that views them as entirely expendable. Corporal Sangdungbyung. Corporal, or Sangdungbyung, represents the first promotion level that a North Korean soldier can achieve, typically after a minimum of 2 to 3 years of service, though many serve far longer before receiving this modest advancement. At this level, a corporal leads a small fire team of 3 to 4 soldiers, but the promotion itself has less to do with tactical competence than with political loyalty and family background, as the military carefully tracks which soldiers show the most enthusiasm during indoctrination sessions. The benefits of this rank are marginal at best, with corporals receiving slightly better rations than privates, and in some cases, small luxuries like tobacco or an extra portion of food that would be unthinkable at the lowest ranks. Still, these men are expected to enforce discipline among their subordinates and serve as the eyes and ears of superior officers, reporting any signs of dissent or wavering loyalty among the privates they supervise. The reality is that roughly 30 to 40% of conscripts might reach this rank during their mandatory service, while the rest remain privates for the entire decade. Even with the single chevron insignia that distinguishes them, corporals remain firmly in the expendable category, with minimal real privileges and living conditions that most outside observers would consider unacceptable. The uniform might be in slightly better condition, and they might be trusted with minor leadership tasks, but they're still trapped in a system that views them as tools rather than individuals deserving of basic human dignity. Sergeant Ha-byong. Sergeant, known as Ha-byong, marks the transition into junior non-commissioned officer territory and represents the first rank with genuine supervisory responsibility over larger groups of men. A sergeant typically commands a squad of 8 to 12 soldiers and serves as the critical link between the officer corps and the enlisted masses, often becoming the most experienced and tactically knowledgeable soldiers in the field, since officers focus more on political reliability than combat expertise. Unlike the conscripts who count down the days until their service ends, sergeants are often career soldiers who have chosen to re-enlist past their mandatory service period, trading additional years for the modest benefits this rank provides. These benefits include basic housing if the sergeant is married, a small monetary bonus that actually means something in North Korea's restricted economy, and the respect that comes from being a long-serving member of the military establishment. Sergeants are responsible for the daily grind of military life, running training exercises, conducting political indoctrination sessions, and maintaining discipline among troops who might be exhausted, malnourished, or quietly resentful. With 2 or 3 chevrons marking their rank, and sometimes carrying a sidearm in certain units, sergeants embody the practical military experience that keeps the massive Korean People's Army functioning, despite its systemic problems. To advance beyond this level requires re-enlisting for what typically becomes a 15 to 20-year total commitment, a decision that shapes the rest of a man's life and ties him permanently to the military system that has defined his existence since adolescence. Master Sergeant Jeonsa. Master Sergeant, or Jeonsa, represents the highest enlisted tier before crossing into officer ranks, and reaching this level is an achievement that fewer than 5% of enlisted soldiers will ever accomplish. These senior non-commissioned officers often lead platoons of 30 to 40 soldiers when officers are absent, and they wield significant authority over daily operations, troop welfare, and the maintenance of discipline in their units. A typical Master Sergeant has between 15 and 25 years of service, making them among the most experienced soldiers in the entire military, with institutional knowledge that far exceeds that of younger officers fresh from military academies. The benefits reflect this status, with Master Sergeants sometimes receiving a small apartment in military housing complexes, a privilege that provides their families with better living conditions than most North Korean civilians could ever hope for. They serve as crucial intermediaries between the officer corps and the enlisted ranks, translating orders downward and reporting concerns upward, all while maintaining the political reliability that allowed them to reach this position in the first place. The insignia features multiple chevrons topped with a star or wreath, and the uniform fabric itself is noticeably better quality than what lower ranks receive, subtle markers of status in a society obsessed with hierarchy. However, reaching this rank requires more than just years of service. It demands intensive political vetting to ensure absolute loyalty to the regime, as Master Sergeants have enough authority and troop contact to be potentially dangerous if their loyalty were ever in question. Second Lieutenant, SOE. Second Lieutenant, known as SOE, marks the entry into the officer corps and represents a dramatic leap in status, privileges, and expectations from even the most senior enlisted ranks. These junior officers typically graduate from the prestigious Kim Il-sung Military University or other officer training schools, where they've received not just military education, but intensive political indoctrination and screening. From their first day of commissioned service, second lieutenants command platoons of 30 to 50 soldiers, wielding authority over men who may be older and more experienced, but lack the political pedigree and education that officers possess. The pay, housing, and food quality improve dramatically at this level, with officers receiving rations and living conditions that would be considered luxurious by North Korean standards, even if they'd be seen as basic or modest in most other countries. Family background becomes absolutely critical for commissioning, as officer candidates must demonstrate what the regime calls good songbun, a political classification system that examines family loyalty history going back 3 generations to ensure no hint of disloyalty or questionable political connections. Officers are distinguished by gold stars on their shoulder boards, pistols on their belts, and leather gear that sets them apart from the masses of enlisted soldiers in rougher canvas equipment. A second lieutenant is expected to demonstrate both tactical knowledge and ideological purity, leading men in training exercises while also conducting political education sessions and serving as a representative of the Kim family's authority over the military. Captain, Daewi Captain, or Daewi, is a company-grade officer who manages between 100 and 200 soldiers and serves either as a company commander or as a staff officer at the battalion level. Reaching this rank typically requires 8 to 12 years of commissioned service, and reports suggest that roughly 60% of second lieutenants will eventually make captain, while the rest either stagnate at lower ranks or leave military service entirely. Captains are eligible for Communist Party membership if they haven't already joined, which opens additional doors for career advancement and provides access to party privileges that extend beyond just military benefits. The material rewards are substantial by North Korean standards, with captains receiving apartments, access to vehicles for official business, and significantly better food rations that help maintain the health and appearance expected of mid-level officers. In combat or large-scale exercises, captains are expected to lead from the front, demonstrating tactical competence and inspiring their soldiers through personal example, while also planning operations and coordinating with other units. The insignia features 2 or 3 gold stars, and successful captains often display medals earned through long service, participation in military competitions, or recognition for political loyalty. The uniforms are better tailored than those of junior officers, projecting an image of professional competence and regime authority. This rank represents a critical middle management tier in the massive Korean People's Army, with captains serving as the practical implementers of orders from above, while managing the day-to-day realities of leading soldiers who may be poorly equipped and inadequately fed. Colonel Daeryong, Colonel, known as Daeryong, is a senior field officer who commands regiments of 1,000 to 3,000 soldiers and holds significant power within the military hierarchy. The journey from captain to colonel typically takes 10 to 15 years for successful officers, though political connections become increasingly important as the ranks grow higher and competition intensifies. Colonels manage operations across multiple companies and battalions, coordinating complex maneuvers and serving as the senior military authority for significant chunks of North Korea's military forces. The privileges at this level are substantial, with colonels receiving larger housing units, personal vehicles, and access to special stores where they can obtain goods unavailable to ordinary citizens. They participate in strategic planning sessions at higher headquarters and often serve as advisors or chiefs of staff to general officers, giving them exposure to the broader military strategy and political considerations that drive North Korean military policy. Political connections matter enormously at this level, as advancement to general officer ranks requires not just military competence, but demonstrated loyalty and the right relationships within the Workers' Party and military establishment. The insignia features 4 stars or an eagle symbol depending on the specific branch and uniform type, and colonels routinely wear multiple medals that reflect their decades of service and participation in the regime's various military and political campaigns. For ceremonies, senior colonels may carry dress swords, ornamental weapons that harken back to older military traditions, while also serving as status symbols in a hierarchy-obsessed society. Major General Sojong. Major General, or Sojong, represents the first general officer rank and commands divisions of 10,000 to 15,000 troops, making this a massive leap in prestige, responsibility, and lifestyle from even the senior colonel ranks. There are reportedly fewer than 100 active major generals at any given time in the entire North Korean military, though exact numbers fluctuate and remain classified by the regime. These officers command entire divisions, shape military policy through their participation in high-level planning sessions, and enjoy privileges that separate them from the vast majority of their countrymen. Major generals live in exclusive compounds reserved for the military elite, receiving imported goods, better medical care, and access to entertainment and luxury items that ordinary North Koreans cannot even imagine. Reaching this rank requires absolute, demonstrated loyalty to the Kim family, as generals have enough authority and troop command to potentially threaten the regime if they were disloyal or ambitious. They participate in meetings of the Workers' Party Central Military Commission, where the highest military and political decisions are made, giving them direct insight into the regime's strategic thinking and priorities. The uniform features gold shoulder boards with large stars, elaborate medals earned over decades of service, and white gloves for ceremonies that emphasize the formality and status of general officer ranks. At this level, military competence matters less than political reliability, as the regime needs to trust that these commanders will remain loyal even if ordered to suppress domestic unrest or carry out politically motivated operations. Marshal Wonsu. Marshal, known as Wonsu, is the highest regular military rank and is extraordinarily rare and prestigious, with typically only 20 to 30 individuals holding this title or its variations at any time in North Korean history. Only the most elite commanders receive this rank, usually men who command entire branches of the military, like the Army, Navy, or Air Force, or who lead major commands that control hundreds of thousands of troops and strategic weapon systems. Marshals live in luxury by North Korean standards, with large residences, personal staff, access to imported goods, and medical care that approaches international standards rather than the primitive healthcare most North Koreans receive. They have direct access to the Kim family and participate in the highest level strategic decisions, sitting in meetings where nuclear weapons policy, military provocations against South Korea, and internal security operations are planned and executed. The appointment to marshal is as much about political loyalty and family connections as it is about military merit, with the regime carefully selecting only those it trusts completely to wield such enormous authority. The North Korean system actually has several variations of the marshal rank, including vice marshal and different types of marshal appointments that create subtle hierarchies even among this elite group. The uniforms feature ornate shoulder boards with multiple large stars, ceremonial sashes worn for state occasions, and extensive medal displays that can cover much of the chest, reflecting decades of service and participation in the regime's key moments. These men represent the absolute military elite, insiders who have spent their entire adult lives rising through a system that demands total loyalty and rewards it with power and privilege. Supreme Commander Choe-Gowisar-Yeonggwan. Supreme Commander, or Choe-Gowisar-Yeonggwan, is the ultimate military authority and is held exclusively by members of the Kim family as part of their hereditary control over North Korea's entire government and society. Kim Jong-un currently holds this position, along with numerous other titles, including Marshal of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, First Secretary of the Workers' Party, and Supreme Leader of the nation. He commands more than 1.2 million active military personnel, plus millions more in reserves and paramilitary organizations, giving him theoretical control over one of the largest standing armies in the world. Beyond conventional forces, the Supreme Commander holds nuclear weapons authorization, making him one of the few individuals on Earth who can order nuclear strikes. The North Korean military doesn't exist primarily for traditional national defense, but rather to preserve the Kim family regime, suppress internal dissent, and project enough military threat to extract concessions from South Korea and the international community. Kim Jong-il was made a marshal at age 49 after years of being groomed as his father's successor. But Kim Jong-un received the same rank at just 29 years old, shortly after his father's death, demonstrating that the position is purely hereditary rather than earned through military service. The Supreme Commander appears in a marshal's uniform with unique insignia that sets him apart even from other marshals, and he is always shown with generals in clearly subordinate positions during military events and ceremonies. The position represents the fusion of political, military, and ideological authority that characterizes North Korea's totalitarian system, where the military serves not the nation or its people, but a single family that has ruled for 3 generations with no sign of relinquishing control. If you want to discuss this video or suggest an idea for the next one, join my Discord, link in the description.